So, what exactly is Shadow and Bone? There are two answers to this question. The first answer is that Shadow and Bone is a fantasy epic set in a world that draws heavily from the imagery and iconography of European history, particularly Tsarist Russia, with magic thrown into the mix for flavor. The continent is divided by a magical scar known as the Fold, a dark realm haunted by monsters that makes traversing the realm extremely dangerous. Shadow and Bone is a chosen one narrative following a young woman named Elena Starkov, who may be the long-prophesied Sun Summoner, who controls light and can close the Fold once and for all. The second answer is that Shadow and Bone is a hybrid of two particular genres. It blends the familiar young adult science fiction and fantasy genre with the more recent pseudo-period fantasy epic. It is Harry Potter and the Hunger Games by way of Game of Thrones and Carnival Row, creating something close to his Dark Materials. It is showrun by Eric Heiserer, the writer of Arrival and Bird Box, and produced by Night at the Museum director Sean Levy, who, with production credits on Shadow and Bone, Stranger Things, and Dash and Lily, is building a young adult empire at Netflix. To its credit, Shadow and Bone looks expensive. The series is shot in Budapest and Vancouver, and it's clear that the production team invested heavily in physical objects like props, costumes, and sets. The location work gives an impressive sense of scale, and Shadow and Bone is judicious in its application of computer-generated special effects shots, getting considerable mileage out of them. The world of the show is interesting. Its look and feel is reasonably compelling of itself. Unfortunately, the show suffers from two major interlinked problems. The first is that, even at 8 episodes, the show suffers greatly from the Netflix bloat. There is, for example, no reason why the 50-minute opening episode couldn't be the show's opening 15 minutes. There are strange choices designed to extend the runtime, such as closing the show's 3rd episode with an extended flashback looking over the events of the previous 3 episodes, an odd decision in an 8-episode series where every episode is dropping simultaneously. Without spoiling too much, of course the show's first season is frustratingly open-ended. Shadow and Bone might make a functional 2-hour movie. To stretch out to 8 episodes, the show has to lean rather heavily on its characters. To put it simply, these characters are all broadly drawn archetypes with little internal life or complexity. They cannot support the weight that the show places on them. Many of the arcs are familiar retreads of standard young adult tropes. The unrequited love between the two leads, the separation and reunion of the two protagonists, the seductive villainous foil. Anybody with any experience within the genre can see how each arc is going to unfold ahead of time. This problem is compounded by the casting. Finding young adult performers who can sell this sort of material is hard. There's a reason why so many of the most successful young adult franchises launched actual movie stars who went on to have critically beloved careers. Even his Dark Materials, the show to which Shadow and Bone is most directly comparable, has Daphne Keane, Ruth Wilson, and James McAvoy to anchor it. That's a stacked deck. It's hard to blame the young adult leads in Shadow and Bone for failing to elevate the overly familiar and somewhat padded material, but there's no spark among the major players. The budget spent on the show's production design might have been better spent building a stronger cast. Even the older actors supposed to buttress the newer faces. Everybody in Shadow and Bone feels a little lost in the fog. Sadly, Shadow and Bone never quite shines. All 8 episodes of Shadow and Bone will be streaming on Netflix from Friday the 23rd of April.